A UCLA win at Purdue? I think that proves they're a contender. Here's why.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. And where we get started today is, hey, UCLA, they're taking on the Boilermakers. One of at least 3 trips to Indianapolis, or the greater Indiana area, right? Because they're going to West Lafayette this time. So one of 3 trips they're making to the state of Indiana in this part of March, late February, heading into March Madness. A win over a slumping Purdue team will, in my mind, prove that UCLA is a contender. And then a sweep over these 2 road games, I think, adds to that love that UCLA's kind of got on this little roller coaster ride, right? What is going on? Are they a real team? Are they not? Is this just the Big Ten travel, right? A lot of these super conferences, not every game in an 18-game, 20-game schedule was it going to be super competitive or crazy road environments. At least not in the Pac-12 for UCLA. That just wasn't the case. If you're going to a tough night in Pullman, if you're going to face a bad team wherever it might be in the mountain schools, maybe an Arizona school, maybe it's up north in the Bay Area, maybe it's somewhere close by. Not every night was as competitive and as feisty as a road atmosphere as UCLA is going to face. When they face a Boilermaker team that's lost 4 in a row, that still has everything to play for, of course, for UCLA, Purdue. The winner of this has an inside track to potentially getting a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament, which we talk about that, but its significance is even greater for UCLA. I was looking at the Big Ten standings, and I was taking a look at one key statistic I noticed for all these Big Ten teams. In my mind, the teams who I think are really good, who have a chance to go deep in the tournament, have this key stat, this key record to their resume. Road records, road victories compared to road losses. So let's see. You've got 2 teams in the Big Ten that stand out at 7-2 records on the road. Who could those be? How about your Big Ten leaders, Michigan and Michigan State? Obviously, the teams who can bank on home victories, but then secure some tough road dubs are huge. And the reason why Michigan's in first place, tied with Michigan State, Michigan went and swept UCLA and USC on the road. Michigan State couldn't do the same thing. And that's their 2 road losses. So you look at that and you're like, okay, but those teams have had only 1 loss at home, really taking care of business on the road, and they're getting hot at the end of February. And because those 2 teams are playing it out at the end of the season for a first place shot at the Big Ten, they're going to be key to UCLA's potential into moving up the Big Ten standings. 2, let's take a look at another road team, road warrior, Wisconsin, 5-4. Now you see all those teams are more Midwest members of the Big Ten, so travel isn't as great going from one coast to the other. They go, yes, to the west, to the east, but it's not like UCLA or the Pacific Northwest or the USCs going all the way to the other like Maryland and Rutgers. So we see Wisconsin, a decent road record, but they do, both Wisconsin and Maryland, have road games, 1 each at a Michigan or Michigan State coming up, which makes UCLA's opportunity this weekend vital to crawling up into a top 3, top 4 spot in the final Big Ten regular season standings. So Wisconsin, they've been a very good team. They impressed me even in that loss to UCLA at Pauley Pavilion. They have a winning road record at the moment, but if they fall back to 500 or worse, then UCLA could leapfrog them. Take another look at Maryland. Maryland sits there 3-5 in the road. All right, they have one of the best home atmospheres. They just had their 2nd home loss of the year, Maryland did, to Michigan State. It was a half-court buzzer beater. That's how tough it is to win at College Park, right? What does John Rothstein call it? The spring break capital of the Northeast. You don't win in Maryland. UCLA saw that. Maryland's been really good. A little susceptible on the road, although decent in neutral site games. Quality team that could do well in March, hasn't done well on the road. That could be a team that gets upset early. Let's look at Purdue. 5-5 in the road. Okay, they've lost 4 games in a row. Figuring out where Purdue is. Are they good? Are they not? They have a win against Alabama on their resume. Certainly a quality opponent, but they bank on home wins. Now we take a look at UCLA, who sits there in Big Ten play 11-6, tied with Purdue and Maryland for the 4th spot, the last double bye spot in the Big Ten. So the winner of Purdue-UCLA is going to have a 1-game lead over the other and the head-to-head tiebreaker, in my mind, pretty much eliminating the other from getting into the top 4 of the Big Ten standings. So winner of this game between the Bruins and the Boilermakers, paired with Maryland, who does have a game against the Michigan school on the road coming up, or a game against the Michigan school nonetheless, coming up, they will possibly fall down the standings. And then Wisconsin, who UCLA has the tiebreaker over, would fall down as well if they lose their upcoming game, which is a tough one. All right. Both Maryland and Wisconsin have a game against either Michigan or Michigan State, which makes UCLA's chances of jumping up in the standings to maybe as high as the number 3 seed legitimate, but they have to beat Purdue to do it. Purdue hasn't played as bad at home. Braden Smith's worst performances have generally come on the road. The one key thing to look at in this game specifically, Purdue in their 9 losses this year. Purdue coming in is 19-9. They were 19-5, pretty much a top 10 team, and then just really sunk themselves deep with some bad losses, 3 of which have come with them leading at halftime. So if you're a UCLA fan and you're sitting there, you're like, okay, this is a chance to prove they can not only get 1 win out of the Mountain Time Zone and Western Time Zone, they can get 2 wins, a quad 1 and a quad 1, which would certainly help the bracketology, which we're going to talk about in a moment, their potential seeding and path to a deep run in the NCAA tournament. You beat Purdue. Not many teams have gone to Purdue and won. That just doesn't happen in West Lafayette. That's an 8 p.m. tip. What do you think they're doing all day? They're prepping. They're partying. They're tailgating of sorts, whether it's indoors. I know it's cold. They're going to get ready to go, and it's going to be loud and rocking in that part of Indiana. And if UCLA comes to play, even if they're down early, you can't give up on them because Purdue has had halftime leads in 4 of their 9 losses. 4 of their 9 losses, including a significant lead to Indiana, where then the Boilermakers just went straight and declined after halftime. If UCLA beats Purdue, proves they can play a team with a decent backcourt, a very raucous home environment. All right, they won in Indiana, but Indiana's now become like, a little bit of this sweetheart bubble team that's actually selected to be in the tournament right now. They're like the last team in. You beat Purdue, that's the first true road victory UCLA would get against a solidified Big Ten team, solidified tournament team, and you win that. I'm like, okay. And you pair that with a Northwestern win, those 2 things with no letdown after and a big performance against this good ball club in their home gym. And then next thing you know, you have a road record to finish the season of 6-4. And the contending Big Ten teams all have those records. Better than 500. You look at Oregon, who's red hot now. They fell and were dipping during the middle part of the season. Oregon right now is 6-4 in true road games. Even though they're a couple of spots behind UCLA in the standings, they could finish right behind them or even higher than Oregon is in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten. Oregon, with all those wins, 4-0 neutral sites, 6-4 in road games. That's why the Ducks are such a weird pick when you're filling out your bracket in March. They could go on a run because they've won close games, weird games, won at Wisconsin, had a huge lead and blew it against Michigan State. All right? So that's a team that's dangerous. All the teams that are dangerous in March have proved it during a certain select stretch in the season. They can do it away from home. Now, UCLA has had some good vibes in Indiana. That was back in 2021 when they went on the run from the first 4 to the final 4. They got the win in Bloomington. Can they get a win in Indiana today against the Purdue Boilermakers? You do that, I'm sold, and I think you should be sold. Because the teams in the Big Ten that have been beaten, battered, and bruised come out with winning records on the road and have a good resume to show for it, battle-tested, and prove they can win close games in tougher environments when maybe the calls, the fans, everything is not going their way. Michigan won in another buzzer beater. Both Michigan and Michigan State won on buzzer beaters on back-to-back nights. Isn't that wild? We're not even in March, and it's time to rock and roll. UCLA win against Purdue. proves, I think, they can go on a deep run if you pair that with the Northwestern win. But the Purdue one is important. That is the big quad one victory. UCLA is waiting on the road. That is on the Eastern time zone. They have just not gotten it yet, and they could. It's within their grasp. Why is it so important? I'll tell you, because Bracketology, Joe Lenardi, the latest one out there, keeps UCLA as a 6th seed. Can that bump up? Certainly. Next on Locked On UCLA. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps. The next thing you know, before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online, right from your couch, right from your bed. You can be covered in under 10 minutes. And in many cases, there's not even a health exam required. It can give you that peace of mind as a parent. Because Fabric, you're dealing with all that, it gives you affordable coverage. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day to protect your loved ones so they don't have to break the bank. And with beyond the life insurance, Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meet, MEET, fabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Price is subject to underwriting and health questions. Here we go. It is the last day of February. If you're not mad, you will be tomorrow. You will be mad. Not because of UCLA, not because of the UCLA women versus USC, not because of anything at all, because the calendar turns to March. And the intensity, the scrutiny of a selection committee, the eyes on all the bracketologists. I believe I go a lot with my trust into Joe Lenardi. He's usually the most accurate in my mind, so I live and breathe and die with his projections at the moment. They get heavily scrutinized. They get updated within the hour. The conference tournaments start to begin. From the ones in the first week to this and that and everything, it is time to get mad. If you're not mad, I know you get mad if you think I think UCLA is a contender. You think I think UCLA is a pretender. Whatever it is, let's get mad together in support of the UCLA Bruins. So here we go. The latest bracketology released on this day, February 28th, the last February bracketology release in this year of 2025. Everything else will just be madness, absolute chaos and madness. UCLA is currently a 6th seed, slated for a Western opening round. What does that mean? There are 2 Western opening round locations in Denver and in Seattle for UCLA. Ideally, after UCLA plays this weekend in the states of Indiana and Illinois, goes back for 1 game against USC, then comes back to play in the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis, you probably don't really want to go to Wichita, Providence, Milwaukee, Cleveland for the first round. No. You do not want to do any of that. UCLA, Mick Cronin, they want nothing to do with that. Unless they get into West Regional, which means the second weekend would be in San Francisco. That'd be nice. But the Bruins would need to sweep the rest of the regular season, a quality win or 2 in the Big Ten tournament with a good finish in the Big Ten regular season standings, and maybe, just maybe, the selection committee might reward them for their efforts of traveling across the country, although they'll be like, you chose this path. You literally chose to travel a lot more on your own dime, even though you get more money. So maybe they might not throw them a bone unless they truly, truly earn it. It's really hard for me to think that UCLA is going to win out and win a Big Ten tournament in addition to winning out the regular season, but some quality wins could get UCLA bumped up a seed line or 2. UCLA is currently slotted to be in the 6th seed line in the East region. Yeah, go to Newark. Yeah, because UCLA wants to go back to New Jersey again, whatever. UCLA would possibly be in the East region, currently slated to take on, an automatic qualifier, a rising 11 seed mid-major program in UC San Diego, the Big West, of course. Those are all projections. Sometimes they like to mix in a regional matchup or 2 on the West Coast, right? Saw that last year with some early season, early round tournaments, right? Arizona played Long Beach State in the first round of the tournament. They tend sometimes to mix some regional flair with a West Coast or an East Coast. They tend to do that, maybe a Midwest versus Midwest. Not always. The committee does have to move the lines up and down a bit because they can't have first or second round matchups in conferences, within conferences. They do that to avoid any rematches until at least the second weekend as best they can. Although when you got an 18-team Big Ten, a supersized SEC, which is apparently going to send every team to the NCAA tournament, which is crazy, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. So UCLA at this moment, in their own regional, in their own half of 16 teams, you have Duke as the 1 seed, a very popular pick to win the national championship. You've got New Mexico, who led the whole game against UCLA on a neutral court before. UConn, the 2-time reigning national champions, with one of the loudest, most bombastic head coach. You sit there and you talk about Mick Cronin's antics. You talk about Mick Cronin's. I've talked about him. I know some of you do not like Mick Cronin's antics. Go watch UConn's coach. Go watch Danny Hurley. Go watch Dan Hurley. Go watch him. And then tell me if you think Mick Cronin is more than Coach Hurley, who is cocky and confident at this moment. Go watch him. Okay, that's UConn in one regional. Missouri, Yale, who is really good out of the Ivy League this year. That's a scrappy 12 seed that can get to the Sweet 16 if that's the case. Purdue as a 4 seed. So if you look at that, UCLA is a 6 seed playing Purdue, who despite 9 losses, despite 4, almost maybe 5 losses if the Bruins hand it to them, is 2 seed lines higher than UCLA because they did beat Alabama earlier this year. So what happens for UCLA if they win that game? If they win this game against Purdue, they could be a 5 or 4 seed. I don't think any world where they're going to end up a 3 seed unless they go undefeated, and that's really best case scenario. A 4 or 5 seed, and I think that's golden for UCLA. 4 or 5 in a West Coast regional, in a West Coast opening round, and I'd be very happy with that. So then you get potentially the winner of Texas Tech and Towson. There's Memphis, there's Tennessee. You maybe get Coach Cal in there with Arkansas as they sneak in an opening round. That's just the 16 teams projected in UCLA's regional. That would be action-packed, top-tier television with either coaches screaming at each other, with teams that UCLA is afraid of or teams UCLA are about to play. All right, that is how crazy it could be. If you're looking at UCLA Purdue, if things had played out the way they do, that could be a key matchup in a second weekend for a chance to go to the Final Four if everything goes right. Now, projections. That doesn't mean anything. This is not the absolute end-all, be-all. But that kind of gives you an insight. Michigan is a team I think is really, really, really good. A Big Ten leader, potential Big Ten champion. They're a 4 seed. Purdue is viewed, based on seed linings and everything, as a 4 seed. All right, they can't be lower to match up with any Big Ten teams in the second round, so they might get bumped up. And a win for UCLA might bump them up a couple of rungs on the ladder simply because they do not want to have conference matchups in the second round. They want to push that to the Sweet 16 at the earliest for all these Big Ten teams or the SEC teams or the Big 12 teams, Big East teams. That is where UCLA is. You want to play in Denver or Seattle and somehow sneak that matchup and get it into the San Francisco West Regional. You do that and UCLA can be good. That is why this weekend is so imperative. You win these 2 on the road. You prove to the committee they have figured it out how to win on the road. They can probably be forgiven for whatever happens in the Big Ten tournament. You win these 2 and you beat USC. The Big Ten tournament is just a glorified exhibition for UCLA, in my mind. In my mind, because they do not have to win. And as long as they don't get beaten down, you win these next 3 games, there is a significant chance it improves where you play location-wise, who you get in the first round. I'd rather them not play a UC San Diego team or any of the top 2, 3 teams in the Big West. Scrappy mid-major league. You want to avoid the Big West. You want to get an overrated mid-major team that thinks they're good, but UCLA will overwhelm them defensively with the shooting, I would hope, from either Bilodeau or Daly and the size of Mata that most teams simply do not possess. Most teams. Big West, they have the shooting and they have the size, depending on who comes out. So you want to avoid all those weird West Coast teams that are sneaky good. in the first round or two. Okay, so that is what UCLA sits right here, right now. Speaking of the here and now, the UCLA women, again, they should be the number one team in the country. They kind of are, and I'll tell you why and what makes this round two of UCLA USC very important. If it wasn't on your mind already, don't forget, they play Saturday night. JuJu, Lauren Betts, round two. Let's talk about it. March basketball is basically here, and there's no better way to get in the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can up to 1,000 times your cash. Let me say that again. You can win up to 1,000 times your cash by just simply picking more or less on at least 2 player projections. Fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. And if you're looking to build lineup, hey, maybe go with the LeBron and Luka. Go over on either the points or the assists. Guess if, hey, say LeBron's going to get more points than expected, then Luka's going to get the assists. Whoever it is, you pick more on both of those. And then if you're a Laker fan, you live both ways. Daily fantasy sports, easy, and you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds to enjoy and be engaged in the game all game long, win or lose, say you're a Laker fan. And hey, when I win, the money can hit the account as little as 15 minutes to keep you engaged the whole time. And hey, check out a Taco Tuesday. PrizePicks even offers those weekly promos like a Taco Tuesday to give you discounted player projections for even more value. Hey, what was last Tuesday? Lakers Mavericks, the Luka revenge game. He had a triple-double. I might want to go a little more on those projections the next time they play having a revenge game. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Here we go. Final segment. The super battle between Lauren Betts and JuJu Watkins, UCLA versus USC. And according to the NCAA selection committee, their bracket reveal, as of yesterday, it is number 1 versus number 3 in the country. Don't mind the rankings. This is number 1 versus number 3. You could argue it's number 1 versus number 2. And you can flip-flop whoever you think those two teams are. Of course, locked on UCLA, I think they're as talented, with the Bruins as deep as it gets, even deeper than USC's team. Even though the Trojans are a pretty deep, solid unit as well, they also beat UCLA in Galen Center. This is a massive opportunity for UCLA. I could argue this game is way more important for UCLA than it is USC. USC has the road win against UConn. They have a win against UCLA. And while they would love to stick it to the Bruins and get a Big Ten championship in year 1, then get the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, UCLA, you win this, you stay as the number 1 overall seed. Don't mind the AP polls that are just clearly biased. When they went through all the rankings, they went through everything, they're like, UCLA, a 1-loss team that has been dominating, getting victories with or without Lauren Betts, with or without some of their best transfer recruits on any given night. They have consistently beaten good teams away from home on neutral sites and mostly at home. All right? This UCLA team is clearly the number 1 team in the country, and the bracket reveal proved it. But it was also interesting to see that how highly they rate USC. USC is a number 1 seed now. South Carolina had dipped, but then Notre Dame lost twice in a row. So last week's number 1 team has already lost twice in a row. Texas, what have they done? They lost to, I think, Notre Dame in overtime. They also lost to South Carolina. They did beat South Carolina, but because they beat South Carolina and the timing of that, because they beat LSU. Oh, by the way, LSU just lost to Alabama. So the wins for Texas minus the loss to a team that UCLA dominated earlier this year makes me think, yeah, UCLA is the number 1 seed. Doesn't mean Texas is not a 1 seed, but the Bruins should be a lot more beloved than they are with these pollsters and the people who do the rankings. It's so dumb. So dumb. UCLA, they win this, Big Ten champs. They win this, number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. And then it comes down to what we would think, a trilogy in a Big Ten tournament, which could decide a Big Ten Player of the Year, could impact Wooden Awards, National Player of the Years, Everybody's leaning JuJu after that super performance. But considering this game is not going to be hidden on Peacock, maybe Lauren Betts can swing some voters and get some last-second goodwill of, hey, I beat her once, maybe twice, and got some revenge at home, where Lauren Betts, the first time these two teams played, did not play as well. It was the JuJu show in a rockin' Galen Center, where the Bruins are now playing at home at Paul Pavilion, where it was already announced the day of almost of the USC game, the first time that this game is sold out. And the last time UCLA played USC at Paul Pavilion, the Bruins jumped out to a big lead. The Trojans closed the gap. And then next thing you know, UCLA pulled away. It was the London Jones night where she had a bunch of threes. Let's take you back to that game against USC where UCLA lost 71-60. It was not in my mind, it wasn't like a dominant double-digit victory. This was one of those where USC led big early. And in the blink of an eye, just like the UCLA at Iowa game, the Bruins clawed closer, got back in it, led this game going into the fourth before the Bruins forgot how to shoot the basketball. JuJu blocked like at least 5 of her 6 shots that she had up to 8 blocks in the fourth quarter, and the Bruins shot 12% in the final 10 minutes. 12%, missing 5 3-pointers, 5 free throws, and JuJu was just swatting away every shot. A game where the lead changed 8 times, and the score was tied 5 times. That is how close these two teams are. And despite the lack of the other networks wanting to give, I believe that the national champion would probably come from one of these two teams. The SEC is starting to beat each other up. You see Notre Dame's coming a little bit down to earth, but they're a strong, scrappy squad. If you keep these two teams on the opposite side of the NCAA tournament, there's a chance we're going to see them play 3 or 4 times this season, 3 or 4 times. And it could decide the national championship with 2 of the best stars in the sport in very different ways. The dominant and exciting JuJu Watkins and the dominant, unstoppable Lauren Betts at times, where she just doesn't miss unless JuJu Watkins blocks her shots, which is what happened last time. But that wasn't the story of the game. I mean, it was at times. Here are things on the UCLA side of things to look out for. Against USC the first time, pretty much there was not a single Bruin that showed up to play, in my mind. That's in my heart of hearts. You had Lauren Betts, who had a rough night shooting, made most for free throws, interestingly enough, but had one of her worst, if not the worst, night of the season shooting the basketball, 5 of 13. Lauren Betts last time shot better than 90% from the field against Wisconsin, against a solid post player. And now you could think Kiki Irifen is going to put up a fight, but I'd like to believe Lauren Betts, if the Bruins can feed her with better entry passes and she works with the footwork and isn't catching it behind the backboard like she was against Iowa and in good positioning, UCLA could see an equally dominant night from Lauren Betts. She did go 18 and 13, but by no means was it spectacular or did it match the effort from JuJu Watkins on that night in the Galen Center. When Betts got the ball and she was settling in, making baskets, making life a living hell on the defensive side for USC, crucial. When Betts was on the bench during the USC scramble for the 4 offensive rebound possession in the middle of the fourth quarter, if you forgot that part of the game, that changed the complexion of the game. When the game was in the balance, Betts needed a rest, and then boom. And if you remember, UCLA after that game, Lauren Betts was in a walking boot. So was she healthy enough going into that game? Did she aggravate something during the game? I don't remember really reading anything about that. I wonder, now that she's had a couple of weeks to rest, to recover, to dominate, now this one's at home, the focus and how UCLA can scout, how they can change this. This is the only team UCLA is going to play twice this season in the regular season. So how UCLA adjusts will be imperative to proving that they have not just the number one team, but do they have the coaching staff to go with it to counter Lindsey Gottlieb's changes or things that they're going to key on to make sure that Betts doesn't get the basketball. Now, nobody else shot the ball well. Kiki Rice, okay, 4 of 10, 15.6 assists, didn't turn it over. That's great, but she missed some crucial free throws down the stretch and was clearly bothered by the atmosphere. She's risen to the occasion multiple times, was clutch in some big-time three-point shots against Iowa. Did foul out, though. Can she rise to the occasion when you've got a bigger, more dominant guard on the other side? And even if she has 10 assists, can she get to the cup, shoot efficiently, and when she gets fouled, she needs to make her free throws. The Bruins did not do that in the crucial part of the game against USC, which cost them a chance to get down and fight for the win late. London Jones, Tamia Gardner, those two combined to go 1 of 7 from 3. To beat USC, you have to win some part of the three-point shooting battle. JuJu Watkins, I do not believe, is going to go 6 of 9 from 3. She's only shot that well from 3 twice this season. 9 of 11 when she blew up versus California Baptist, and then 6 of 9 from 3, where you saw as the game wore on, she started missing some shots. She made a lot and was very dominant offense, defense, facilitating. When there was a 2-quarter stretch against UCLA, USC only had one player made a field goal. That was JuJu Watkins. In 2 quarters of play, UCLA avoided and had said, JuJu, it's by yourself. And that almost worked when she came back down to earth for the middle 20 minutes of that game a couple weeks ago. It almost came to fruition until a big 3 was hit by the Trojans, and then Kiki Irifen got some fouls. But the Bruins quieted the Stanford transfer, some other transfers, their key freshmen. They did a lot to get some of the key pieces and key cogs of USC's lineup out of a big role. I don't think JuJu is going to shoot that well from 3. Now, if UCLA keeps her away from the free throw line, remember, has to shoot less than 15 to 10 free throws because JuJu gets the line a lot. And hopefully in this game, she does not get the whistle. And then next thing you know, UCLA converts from the free throw line, unlike the Bruins last time. You need scores. You need efficiency, the best players to play really well, and one key player who can make a big difference in this game. Because it's going to come down to the depth of these two teams. It's going to come down to the depth. Janiah Barker, who did not play in the last game, was a little bit banged up and has been hurt these last few games. Against USC, played 19 minutes. Had 5 rebounds, a block, but was 4 or 5 from the floor with 10 points, blowing kisses to the crowd, clearly unfazed by the atmosphere, and making tough shots. She was the only Bruin that was shooting the ball well, that shot 5 or more shots and shot efficiently at it. Because she can go make the tough follow-away jump shots, drive in physically, can handle the ball, keep it with her, although she sometimes can be a bit turnover prone, and score in traffic at will in the best of scenarios against a smaller defender. She only played 19 minutes because she fouled out. And she doesn't always play 19 to 20 minutes. And with her health, a little bit of a question mark heading into the regular season finale. That's something I wonder, okay, where is UCLA going to go with this one? I hope she's healthy, because if you want a key X factor, Janiah Barker's it, if she's healthy. Now, if she's out, you go back to Jones and Gardner and their three-point shooting. When London Jones plays well, UCLA doesn't lose. Gardner can put herself in that London Jones category if she shoots well from 3. If she shoots well, if UCLA outshoots USC from 3, which doesn't always happen in the course of the season, but they can in this game against USC, you probably will see a UCLA win by 7 to 8, maybe 10 points. But it's exciting. It'll be a battle. And we're going to see this not just once, probably twice, dare I say 3 more times. Hopefully battling for a national title, because these two teams have the best players, the best teams, and it would make for a great appointment television if they played for a national championship. The battle for Los Angeles, the battle for national supremacy, right now they're just trying to win the Big Ten. Winner of this wins the Big Ten, gets the 1 seed, and gets bragging rights for a week. And UCLA needs this, because they lose this, they become the 4th 1 seed. They fit the ideal, hey, they're the 5th team in the country from all those haters across the country who rank them low. All right? Like, I don't understand it. I do not understand it, how all these AP pollsters are like, yeah, UCLA kind of, no. Win this game, they will be the number 1 team in the country. You are already the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA committee's minds, and that included the first USC loss. That is how dominant the Bruins have been, and they've only added to the resume with some crucial road victories and wins over ranked opponents in the Big Ten. I'm fired up talking about this game, and I hope you're fired up too. For both the UCLA-Purdue games and the UCLA-USC games, there will be post-game reactions. Now, will they come out later or the next day? Be wary of that. Might not come out as quick as you hope, but there will be discussions and episodes discussing each game in depth over the weekend, either coming out late Friday to Saturday or late Saturday into Sunday for each game. So be up to date with those. We'll give each game its own love because they deserve it. I'm excited. Let's go. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Beat SC. Let's go. Knock off the Trojans and Lauren Betts. Prove that you're the most dominant player in women's college basketball again. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.